Before we do the peace song and the closing, I'd like to ask the search team to come up here and the board members to come up here. Vicki wasn't able to join us today, but she's here in spirit, we know. We have a great announcement to make. We have hired a new minister. So. And what's that? It's about time. Before I make all the official stuff, let the search team explain their huge process, but their process to get us to this point. So, Chris, you're the lead.
Yep. Good morning, everyone. All right. And I think it's appropriate that as I go through and explain our process here, that I'm relying on one of our team members, Paula Land, who drafted some quick talking points here that I can use. And that's really the metaphor and the literal need that we all had for each other as we got together. We quickly learned that we all had gifts and talents that we brought to the table that then meshed to make the process move smoothly. So for me, just selfishly for 2 seconds, I want to thank the search team. It's been great working with you guys. And so for us, I'd like to go through the process of what we went through. Then I'm going to hand it over to Paula to talk through kind of what happened the past recent weeks here. And as always, just knowing how I tend to speak, if there's anything that I skip over, anything that needs to be added, if I'm going too fast, if I'm saying too much, feel free. I take direction well, which is what I think makes a good facilitator. You know, I was honored to be part of the process, but I knew the strengths that I had to give to the process was in organization, in an order, and using that 12th power to its fullest, just to help facilitate the work here. So to that end, what we did as a congregation, as you remember, through the work of Paula and Josh and Mary, is we came together as a congregation to find consensus in what we wanted in a new minister. What was that lens through which we were going to look at every single prospective candidate? And it wasn't so much looking at a certain timeline, as I mentioned before, or a certain magical number of candidates. It was just when we received an applicant, we went through a process using that lens as literally and as judiciously and as consciously as we could to make sure that the needs, the wants, the desires of the congregation were always at the forefront. So I know this is probably going to be repeated a couple times, but just to remind everybody and to bring up anybody new that's new here to UnityCR, was not here for that process. What we valued in order is, number one, a presenter for, Sunday speaking and to teach classes. Number two, what we valued was interpersonal communication, prayer consciousness, being compassionate and sensitive to others' needs. We also, at number three, valued leadership. And that means not only with the teams and the board, but also in building a spiritual community within and also without to the greater Cedar Rapids, Eastern Iowa community. Having and instilling and promoting prosperity consciousness also goes with leadership. Number four, being a visionary, planner, and organizer with financial development strategies for growth both financially and in other ways here at Unity, including our youth programs. And then with numbers 5 through 7, it ranked out as spiritual counseling, pastoral care, and administration. So that was the lens. That was what we distilled everything down to. That became the measuring stick, the rubric by which we viewed every applicant. So to that end, once that work was done and once the search team was formed, we met routinely since December of 2018. And just going through the notes here, we've had a total of 5 Unity ministers who have applied, and each applicant went through the same process. So the first step would be to just review their materials, their resume, their cover letter, and then to listen or watch a Sunday talk or a class that they provided. Then, step two, was to determine if the candidate met our UnityCR criteria, which I just went through there. That was the lens. Number three, if so, we would conduct a video conference call. And so that, at that point, there's these filters that were already put in place from Unity Worldwide, from other support that we received to give us this timeline of procedures. And so step three was that video conference call. Step four would be then to contact references before deciding if we would invest in bringing them in to speak on Sunday, to teach a class, to interview with the search team, the board, the staff, and the LULs. Only one of the 5 candidates met the criteria and exhibited the qualities we are seeking in a minister. So now, with those steps and that lens, let me turn it over to Paula.
Thank you, Chris. So 2 weeks ago, we brought Reverend Debra here, and on a Saturday, she taught a class, and we asked for your feedback, and we got great feedback. On Sunday, she did a talk, and we also asked for your feedback, and really the response was overwhelmingly positive. After the service, we had an opportunity to ask a lot of questions and to really get to know who Reverend Debra is as a person and as a minister, as a spiritual leader. And at that time, it was just awesome to listen to and to hear all of the great questions that came forward and to just hear how easily and authentically Reverend Debra responded to those questions. So then afterwards, the search team, the board, the LULs, and any staff that were present were able to go into a private session with Reverend Debra and finish up any further questions we had, as well as invited her to ask questions of us. And I think the really cool thing was hearing from her why she felt like UnityCR could be her spiritual home and why she really felt like she could bring her gifts to this place. So with overwhelming consensus, we met to just review and make sure we had checked all of the boxes in our process and made the recommendation to the board to pursue Reverend Debra as our next minister, which they did. And some of the things that we really saw in Reverend Debra, I think, was, number one, a very effective speaker. And we did receive that input also from her references. We had amazing references. And they also said, absolutely wonderful speaker. She has, based on her many, many years in the Unity faith, she has a very strong, she's very spiritually mature. She's very grounded spiritually. And she was able to articulate a vision for our expanding and thriving ministry, as well as the expansion of our own spiritual consciousness here. And finally, one of the things that really excited us was her interest in being a strong presence in our community, to really being out there and letting people know who she is and who we are as a spiritual community. So I think, as I kind of mentioned, we really feel like she is a very genuine, authentic person. She was so easy to work with through this process, and she's incredibly knowledgeable in Unity truth principles and really knows how to connect with people from many different faith backgrounds. So those were some of the top qualities I think we found in Reverend Debra, and felt that there was really no need to wait around for some other candidate to come, because she truly exhibited all of the qualities that we're looking for. So with that, Laura.
So the search team made the recommendation to the board, and the board met. And before I go too far, I want to give a shout out to Linda, who served on both teams. So she did all the search team work and then came on the board and did all the board work. So a lot of time, a lot of commitment in that. So thank you, Linda. So the search team made their recommendation to the board, then the board met and reviewed, again, what the congregation listed as the highest priorities in finding a candidate, what we learned from her background and from meeting her and listening to her, and the feedback on the evaluation forms as well. And we decided that we would pursue that. And so the last couple of weeks, we've been working on a contract, and that's a lot of stuff to go through, and updating the job description and getting all that paperwork done. And we submitted it to her this week, and she responded yes, that she would be thrilled to come here and be our minister. And so I don't even know if we said her whole name, Reverend Debra Carter Williams. Reverend Debra is what she likes to be called, Debra, actually. So, but she will start January 1st. And yeah. In the meantime, she and her husband will be here sometime in December to do some house hunting and that kind of thing. So we might see her before January 1st. Hopefully we'll be able to connect with her when she comes into town. In the meantime, we have some great speakers lined up in the next couple of months. So we're really excited. But mostly we are just so grateful for all of your input, for the time and effort and integrity of our search team, just the way that they handled everything, the process, and that they explored all the candidates. They did everything, did their due diligence all the way through, and then it made the board's job pretty easy because they had their recommendation and we just had to do all the detailed paperwork. So we are just so grateful for all the effort and all the time and love and wisdom that came from this group up here and all of you. So won't hold us anymore, but hip, hip, hooray. We are so, yay! Push, guys. All right. Yay. We're doing a happy dance. All right, I will give this back to Carl then. We'll do the rest of the service. So thank you all.